over here. I don't know if specifically this historian, what happened to be a rabbi or not. He came from, let's say, a leading family in Bulgaria, a leading Orthodox Jewish family in Bulgaria, but we're going to cover him inside this series because it seemed he was like a very, very strong historian of rabbis, of the different history of the in of itself. So to honor all the work he did, let's just say, in regards to all the research he's done, possibly we're using some of it from let's say some of the database that he found. We're just going to include him inside and explore some of the highlights of his life because it marks his Hilula here on the 11th of ER respectively. Now his name is happened to be Solomon Abraham Rosanes. Now once again, I don't know if he received a rabbinic ordination or not, what titles he had respectively, but he was a historian, he was an archivist, let's just say, and a librarian of Sephardic Jewry. He was also a researcher of the Jewish people in the Ottoman Empire. So he was very, very famous within regards to that specific sphere in of itself. Now it's reported over, he was born in 1862 on the 14th of April, and he passed away, he was about 76 years of age, on the 12th of May 1938. So it's reported that would have been, I think, approximately 11th of Iyar, and we're coming to that date this week over here. Now, he was born in an area called Rus, I think, in modern-day Bulgaria at the moment. I think it's the fifth largest city, actually, in Bulgaria, and it was part of the Ottoman Empire. And the family was an Orthodox Jewish family of Sephardic origin. It was reported over that his family was one of around 200 families at that time in that specific vicinity. I think his father's name was Abraham, or Abir, as they call. I think he lived between 1838 to 1879. He was the head of the city's Jewish community. I believe his father was also a rabbi, a teacher, and an educator. So we see that he comes from a rabbinic family, which is a good extra thing to know because, okay, so that is... that's the first thing. Maybe we'll speak about him on his Hilula at that point in time. I think the father had various different connections. Okay, so let's continue. He was educated, I think, in the Talmud Torah. I think there was a famous rabbi we actually spoke about on various occasions before, Rabbi Chaim Bejarno, who he himself happened to be a chief rabbi of various different countries. And we mentioned about him. He would learn education over there, studying. It's reported over he would study in the Alliance network system over there. He would study also the various different languages, Turkish, German, and French. Remember, the Alliance school system itself was not necessarily very much as anywhere near as Torah orientated as Otsar Torah and other Torah networks in of itself. It was more broad education field in there, but that's maybe for another class in of itself. Come with the year 1874, and at that point in time, he'd be about 12 years of age. He would come to Eretz Israel with his uncle Mordechai Rosanes, who happened to be a minister of the Ottoman Empire. And while he would be in Jerusalem, he would progress with his learning of different languages. He would study Arabic. And come on 1877, when I think there was a war between the Turks and the Russians in the South, it would actually break out. He fled with his family to Serbia over there, obviously to escape the violence there was. And come at the age of 17, sadly his father passed away, and he had to go to work to support his family while he was obviously still learning in education in school. Now, he wrote many articles in various different Jewish newspapers in Bulgaria and published various different historical essays. I think come at the turn of the 20th century, he moved to Constanta in the Kingdom of Romania over there. And over there he became joining the Zionistic movements, including the Chovevei Tzion movement. I think it was a proto-Zionist organization founded actually in the year 1861. It was. So maybe we'll speak about that more on another, and was sent as one of the Bulgarian delegates, the fourth Zionistic Congress. Now, when he become older, he'll progress his language abilities, learning Greek, Italian, and Romanian, and would use these languages to gather information for various different archives across the Ottoman Empire while he was traveling around. It's reported over he will settle in Galați County in Romania, and I think there was a toughness within regards to finances, would mean he'd return to Sofia, where he would actually naturally being into books and chronicles and histories and archives. He worked at the Jewish Library until he passed away in 1938. It was reported over. Okay, now let's examine some of the research, maybe some of the criticisms of the research. I'm using actually the Wikipedia article we had over here. They say that Rosanes claimed that Jews had settled in Bulgaria as early as the first Bet HaMikdash time period. Let's say, and during the 6th century, contrary to many academics, let's just say, who believe that Romanayat Jews were the first to arrive in Bulgaria. This was 6th century before Common Era, I believe. I think in the 1st century he holds. I'm not sure. Okay, according to him, the book of Ezekiel, let's say, talked about the Jews were actually living in the Balkans, apparently. That was another one of his claims, let's just say. He looked and searched for documentation on the Morano community. That's a famous, especially those who were converted to the generic Sephardic rite once they immigrated to the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century. They maybe saying they lost their original tradition. So he was looking, using secondary sources, archaeological evidence of the studies within regards to that. Reported over, he would tour Bulgaria and document the collected fragments of tombstones, tablets, inscriptions, manuscripts, some of which had been lost beforehand following his record due to this, because obviously there was wars during the 20th century, so we'll actually search for that. And it's actually reported over that various testimonies collected by him are considered to be of great historical importance for locating the origins of the Sephardic Bulgarian Jewry, as he had opportunities, let's say, to interview close descendants of the original Sephardi settlers. He visited the archives of the Jewish community in Saloniki, let's say before there was a fire in 1917, it's reported over. Obviously, the archives got destroyed at that point in time. He had comprehensive description of many of the manuscripts. He would review it. He would preserve. It was all those. He reviewed the preserves, unique writings, but I think they were lost in the fire, respectively. He was a researcher in various different writings and were recorded almost entirely in the Hebrew language, among the first even write history of Balkan Jews in Hebrew. I think because of the multiple languages, he had been able to research at a much higher level. It's reported over that his writings not only covered history, but let's say linguistics, including reported over in 1929, there was publication of One Language and One Thing on Hebrew philosophy, where there's a use of comprehensive linguistics to reconstruct, let's just say, origins of early written Hebrew. Various researchers, accordingly it's written here, also asserted that the spoken language of Balkan Jews had roots in ancient Greek, and I think remnants of the time period of the Roman rule. Now, let's explore some of the people that might have questioned, let's just say, some of the research did. They say that modern historians will actually come in and let's say have disagreed with the research methods he would have used on basis of historical accuracy. They maybe believe that he didn't necessarily use the primary sources that could complete the historical picture, and some of them would have held that some of the conclusions was maybe inaccurate. However, I think everyone was united about his extensive documentation, where he was able to preserve the various different facts and items that may have been lost, and the form of it had been lost. And he really did a lot for modern research in of itself, respectively. And so that's quite interesting. Now, I think that reported over, there's various legacies in his memory. There are streets named after him in the German colony in Jerusalem and in Tel Baruch in Tel Aviv. It's reported over. Now, his family history was recorded by his brother Chaim and survives in its original manuscript in Tel Aviv. So that is quite interesting. Maybe we could explore it. So he would go on to have reported over a granddaughter that would, I think, got married, if I'm not mistaken, to a Bulgarian activist and attorney. It's also reported over. But we'll try and check the various different history on other people around his family at one stage in time. But it's reported over the 11th Iyar is the Hilula, marks the Hilula of this famous rabbi. He passed away at the age of 76, I think in Sofia, which happened to be in the Kingdom of Bulgaria at that point in time. So it's always good to visit the life of a Jewish historian, one that takes care about what actually occurred at that point in time. We try to explore. If anyone knows more information about him, please let me know. We actually did a video about his teacher, Rabbi Chaim Bajarno, some months back, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I'm a friend of the great-grandson or a descendant of Rabbi Chaim Bajarno I actually met, who lives quite near me, so that is quite an interesting tidbit. So please, everyone, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos to other people, and we're a community trying to learn about the history of Sephardi Rabbi.